Welcome to your daily dose of sci-fi adventures. New stories dropped every single day. Smash that subscribe button and ring the to help us reach 1,000 subscribers and unlock even more epic cosmic tales. The Arctic is a land of extremes, a vast, pristine wilderness where the sun's feeble smile barely warms the snow, and the wind can carve sculptures out of ice in minutes. For Dr. Elena Morozova, this desolation was home. She'd spent 15 years studying the subtle signatures of Earth's ancient climate's proof hidden in layers of ice that had preserved microscopic bubbles of atmosphere for hundreds of thousands of years. But nothing in her extensive field notebooks or academic papers could prepare her for what lay under the frozen surface of Station Polaris. March 3rd, 6:40 to local time. The sky was a pale, shifting canvas of grays and blues, the kind of day that transforms slowly, offering no comfort. Elena's breath curled in ghostly tendrils as she peered through the goggles strapped tight against her cheeks. Round her, the 6-member core team of glaciologists and geophysicists dug furiously, chiseling away at the permafrost. "Clear," called out Dr. Miguel Santos, her second in command, his voice crackling through their comm units. He was leaning back on the edge of the borehole, wiping sweat and frost from his brow. Bedrock at 12 meters, ready for core extraction. Elena sampled the final ice core, glancing at the distinctive banding patterns that told of seasonal melting events. She jotted down notes: no anomalies so far, yet something in the data had suggested a disturbance, an odd magnetic fluctuation that showed up on their ground-penetrating radar earlier that morning. "Good work," she replied, not wanting to break their rhythm. "Prep the corer for pull." As they winched the metallic cylinder to the surface, a jarring clank echoed through the camp. Elena's heart stuttered. In 15 years of Arctic fieldwork, she'd learned that strange sounds in the ice almost always meant equipment failure or worse, crevasse collapse. She hurried forward, strapping on her boots to cross the slick snow. There, half buried in the ice wall they had just cut away, was a gleaming curve of metal. It made no sense. The layer in which it appeared dated back at least 10,000 years. Their instruments had misread the anomaly. This was not boulder or glacial debris. This was something manufactured. Elena dropped to her knees, brush and scraper in hand. Carefully, she swept away the fine powder of frost. At first, it resembled a fragment of some modern aircraft's aerodynamic wing. But as the chill afternoon light played across its surface, she saw seams so fine they might as well have been invisible, and panels that curved with impossible precision. There were no rivets, no weld marks, nothing to indicate human engineering. "Miguel, look at this." Her voice was steady, but her heart thundered in her chest. Miguel knelt beside her, jaw slack. "That can't be real. It's too perfect." A dozen questions burst in her mind. How could something so technologically advanced be entombed in ice from the end of the last ice age? Who could have built it, and why was it here? Yet before she could voice them, every scientist in the camp, engineers, seismologists, even the cook, crowded around, drawn by the silent gravity of the discovery. By evening, word had leaked through satellite relays. A position update to the International Polar Research Network triggered alerts across agencies. DARPA, ESA, NORAD, journalists from major networks pinged for live feeds. Elena found herself fielding calls on her satellite phone even as the Arctic twilight deepened into an ink blot of stars. That night, under a canopy of brittle light, the Aurora's mist thundered into the ice-cracked bay. The resupply ship's cranes and winches clanged to life, setting up floodlights that turned the white world into a sterile stage. Military personnel in insulated parkas circled the site, their icy breath-fogging goggles as they took measurements and issued directives over encrypted radios. Elena watched from the edge of the operations zone, both exhilarated and unnerved. The ship's hull gleamed under the floodlights, longer and wider than any conventional aircraft, tapering toward a tail that disappeared into the darkness. It lay at a gentle incline, as though cradled by the glacier itself. Overhead, the aurora borealis swirled, green and violet sheets of light dancing in silent celebration or ominous warning. The next morning, an international team of engineers moved in. High-torque drills, diamond-edged saws, and plasma cutters hummed as they attempted to pry the outer shell free. But every tool they tried glitched or overheated when it neared the hull. The metal simply wouldn't yield. Spectrometers and X-ray scanners read strange alloys elements that Earth's periodic table didn't even list, blended in ratios that defied known materials science. Elena stood at the command tent's entrance, watching holographic displays of subsurface scans. The metal hull appeared void of cavities, except for a small hatch on its dorsal surface, a mounting point for instrumentation and natural locus of interest. She tapped a finger at the image. "Focus all efforts here," she said, realizing that if they couldn't cut through a flat panel, they might negotiate through a mechanical seam. "We need to know if it's hollow." On March 7th, at precisely 3:17, the hatch began to glow. Elena, summoned from her tent, found the engineers frozen in awe. Thin lines of blue-white light spread from the hatch's edge, tracing patterns that pulsed in slow time. As if guided by invisible hands, the panels slid apart on silent, frictionless tracks. The air hummed in resonance, a tone so low and pure that it filled the chest like a swaying heartbeat. "Elena," whispered Lieutenant Anders, the military liaison, "this is unbelievable." She swallowed past the lump in her throat. The hatch revealed a darkness so complete it looked like a void, yet, at its center, a faint luminescence beckoned. The light wasn't harsh or artificial, it had a living quality, like bioluminescent jellyfish drifting through a midnight sea. As Elena stepped forward, goggles and portable respirator in place, her instruments detected a pulse of exotic particles, muons and tachyon-like fluctuations surrounding the opening. Each step sent ripples through her portable gravimeter. Meanwhile, seismic sensors detected micro-vibrations in the ice, as though the ship were waking. "Wait," she said, raising a gloved hand. "We proceed protocol Alpha No 1 enters without full scans and a containment perimeter." But the glow intensified, washing her visor in pale blue. A tremor ran through the ice, and for a heartbeat, every researcher felt the same sensation: wonder, fear, and an almost irresistibly curious pull toward the abyss. Behind them, the dawn began to break, splintering the Arctic sky with streaks of orange and pink. It felt like the world itself was holding its breath. In that moment, with humanity poised on the threshold between the known and the unfathomable, Dr. Elena Morozova realized that this discovery would change everything. The ice, 10 millennia of frozen time, had preserved not just a relic of a lost civilization but a living testament to a cosmic inheritance. And now, standing on the ridge of possibility and peril, she wondered what destiny had in store for any who dared to cross that glowing threshold. The morning after the hatch first split open, a brittle Arctic dawn crept across the ice. The floodlights of the aurora's mist still blazed, chasing back the dark like mechanical suns. Dr. Elena Morozova arrived at the excavation site with a mug of scalding coffee, its steam briefly coiling around her visor before vanishing into the frigid air. Around her, the international team had transformed the camp into a hive of disciplined frenzy. Engineers in insulated coveralls calibrated cutting lasers, geophysicists adjusted gravimeters, xenobiologists set up containment fields. Every eye was drawn back to the yawning aperture, the ship's hatch glistening with blue-white filaments of light that pulsed at irregular intervals. The glow reminded Elena of neural synapses firing, or of distant galaxies birthing stars. Her calm, unit crackled. "Elena," came Dr. Rajiv Malhotra's voice, tense with excitement. "Our scanners are picking up something in the antechamber. You need to see this." She crossed the slick metal ramp that had been extended into the ship like a silver tongue, boots crunching on scattered granules of ice. Each step triggered readings on her portable field monitor, spikes in exotic radiation, negative gravitic shifts, and faint electromagnetic signatures that defied Earth's natural spectrum. At the hatch threshold, she paused under an arc of biometric sensors, safety measures no longer able to contain the quantum anomalies leaking from within. Inside, the antechamber opened wide as the belly of a leviathan. Its walls, curved in gentle arcs, were forged from panels so smooth they seemed liquid under the floodlights. No visible seams marred their perfection. Holographic glyphs, fluid spirals, and tessellated patterns scrolled across the surfaces, as though reacting to the presence of new life. The light was neither emitted nor reflected. it simply existed, bathing everything it touched in a subtle iridescence. "Elena, look." Rajiv stood beside a scanning rig that hovered in midair, its sensors darting among the glyphs like curious insects. He pointed to the nearest panel's script, a continuous loop of shifting symbols that morphed with each scan. "It's adaptive," he whispered. "The more data we collect, the more the patterns evolve. It's like the ship is learning from us." A cold thrill ran up her spine. "We need to document, but not provoke. We're observers here." She unpacked her camera and began photographing the walls, careful to maintain a respectful distance. Yet every image she captured felt incomplete. No lens could fully frame the depth of those living patterns. Beyond the antechamber lay a narrow corridor, its floor a seamless expanse of pale crystalline material. Each step across it hummed with kinetic resonance, as though the ship were converting their movement into power. Sensors mapped the architecture, series of concentric rings, narrowing toward a central chamber. The air felt denser here, carrying a faint metallic tang that made Elena's throat tighten. At the corridor's mouth, a secondary hatch stood closed. Rajiv tapped a console beside it, and the panels rippled, folding inward like the petals of a cosmic flower. Beyond lay the core chamber, a cathedral of technology and enigma. The core chamber's centerpiece was an orb suspended within a spidery lattice of translucent filaments. It glowed with a slow, undulating cadence, cycling through colors beyond a visible spectrum, hues that teased the edge of human perception. The orb's surface was alive with motion, as if currents of energy flowed beneath a glassy membrane. Elena felt an irresistible draw, as though the orb called directly to her mind. Instruments whined softly as the team deployed scanners. Dr. Mei-Ling Zhao, a xenochemist, analyzed airborne particulates, nanoscale particulates in suspension. She reported, "They're catalyzing airborne molecules, creating microfields of altered reality around the orb." Her voice trembled. "If we get too close, we might destabilize local spacetime." Rajiv's spectrometer chirped, quantum fluctuations spiking, entanglement fields flickering. "This orb isn't just a power source, it's a beacon." He exhaled, his breath rattling the filter on his mask. "Something or someone is listening." Suddenly, the orb pulsed more rapidly, sending ripples through the lattice. The chamber lights dimmed in response, and from the glyph-covered walls came a low, melodic vibration. It felt like the heartbeat of the craft, reverberating through their suits and into their bones. Elena steadied herself against a support pillar. Her comm crackled again. "Lieutenant Anders, all external sensors are registering seismic activity hundreds of kilometers away. The ice sheet is responding to the ship's power." Static buzzed beneath his words. "We've got to decide. Do we continue, or do we seal this thing back up?" Elena closed her eyes for a heartbeat, listening to that alien rhythm. The orb's pulse synchronized with her own heartbeat. She felt it in her temples. A gentle insistence. Could she turn away now? The fate of knowledge and perhaps of Earth itself weighed on her decision. She opened her eyes. "We proceed with extreme caution. But first, let's see if we can communicate." Her words hung in the charged air. Rajiv nodded and moved to the control console. He placed a gloved hand on the illuminated glyphs, and the patterns shifted, forming new alignments on the orb's surface. Colors coalesced into sequences, gradients that pulsed twice for yes and thrice for no. Testing basic queries, Rajiv began, his voice tight. "Try simple mathematics to +2, then play for pulses, please." The orb responded, a soft green flash for undulations. Elena's chest tightened. They were not only waking the ship, they were entering a pact. The chamber lights soared to full brilliance, and in every panel, the scrolling glyphs paused a silent exhalation. The ship had acknowledged them as sentient interlocutors. A single message imprinted itself on Elena's mind, not through words, but through pure concept. "Summon the Guardians." Her breath caught. The meaning spread across her consciousness like wildfire. The ship wasn't merely a vessel, it was an archive, a sentinel, and potentially a harbinger. To unleash it fully would beckon powers beyond human ken. Behind her, Mei-Ling gasped. "We're seeing images." Holographic projections shimmered around the orban, endless starfield pierced by a luminous crescent world, then towering structures of crystal and light. Then a cataclysmic blaze consuming everything. Each vision lasted only a heartbeat before dissolving. The builders, Elena murmured, their story, their warning. She steadied herself against the lattice framework. We need to understand their fate before we decide our own. Outside, the Arctic wind howled against the hull. Inside, the ancient vessel thrummed with renewed vitality like the planet itself had been awakened from a dream. Elena raised her visor, eyes glistening with determination. Let's decrypt their archives, she said. The greatest discovery in human history awaits, and so do its greatest dangers. And with that, the team plunged deeper into the ship's alien sanctum, ready to face the secrets that had slumbered for 10,000 years beneath the Arctic ice. A low hum thrummed through the corridors of the ancient vessel, so perceptible now that even without instruments the team could feel it echoing in their bones. Dr. Elena Morozova paused at the threshold of the core chamber, letting her eyes adjust to the shifting colors that danced across the translucent walls. Each hue seemed to carry a message, a fragment of memory from the civilization that had built this ship. Behind her, the international research team fanned out, instruments in hand. Dr. Rajiv Malhotra stood near the orb's lattice support, recalibrating his quantum spectrometer. Dr. Meiling Zhao was crouched beside a hovering collection pan, sampling the airborne nanoparticles that drifted in the trembling air. Lieutenant Anders surveyed the perimeter with the stern detachment of a soldier, tasked with guarding the unknown. Even the vessel's engineers, in their thick, insulated suits, approached the orb with reverent hesitation. Elena stepped forward, raising her voice over the resonant tone. We've confirmed the orb is the ship's central nexus, its prime mover and data core. If we can interface with it, we might access its archives. She pulled a slender probe from her pocket, a prototype quantum coupling device, designed for first contact scenarios. Rajiv, I need authorization to link our probe to the orb's surface. Rajiv glanced up, tension etched into his brow. Understood, but if it destabilizes, we risk losing this entire chamber and perhaps triggering an uncontrolled energy release. He tapped commands into a nearby console. I'll open a remote containment field. Any surge will be absorbed by the lattice matrix. Elena nodded and approached the orb. The probe extended like a slender finger when the tip kissed the orb's membrane. The chamber's lights dimmed, and every wall panel exploded in bioluminescent pattern, a symphony of glyphs racing toward convergence. The orb quivered. Inside Elena's suit comms, Rajiv's voice cracked, reading immense data throughput sequences of symbolic encoding. Then raw quantum state information. It's like watching a civilization's entire lifespan. In real time, a ribbon of light emerged from the orb, snaking around the probe and drawing it into the lattice. Elena watched in awe as the glyphs resolved into holographic glyph tables, each symbol glowing like distant stars. Equations, diagrams of crystalline structures, and star charts unfolded before her eyes. Galaxies spun in silent grandeur. Meiling gasped, stellar cartography. This ship crossed multiple galaxies. Their homeworld lies at the center of the Cepheus constellation. She pointed to a cluster of lines converging on a phosphorescent nebula. They were explorers and archivists. Images flickered, shimmering cities of prismatic towers built on terraces of living crystal, rivers of liquid light winding through violet forests, beings of translucent skin whose veins pulsed with an inner glow. Then came darker visions, rifts tearing through spacetime, worlds collapsing in bursts of ultraviolet fire, and fleets of warships vanishing into nothingness. Elena's breath caught. This isn't just a vessel, it's a lifeboat and a library. They gathered the knowledge of every planet they visited, hoping to preserve it. She swiped her gloved hand through the holodisplay, isolating a triangular symbol that repeated throughout the sequences. This glyph appears where they catalog threats, energy anomalies, temporal instabilities, biological pandemics. Lieutenant Anders' calm crackled. Ma'am, we've got movement on the outside sensors. Something's crawling beneath the ice, seismic readings, but localized. His tone held a hint of alarm. It's converging on our camp. Elena turned, heart pounding. Notify all teams no one leaves the perimeter. Keep the external lights on full and raise the thermal shields. As Anders relayed orders, a low, rumbling vibration ran through the hull. The containment lattice around the orb pulsed violently, and metallic fragments, dust, and ice rained from the ceiling gratings. Rajiv's spectrometer went wild. Power spike, core energy is rising. Suddenly, the chamber doors at the corridor entrance sealed with a resonant clang. Lights flickered. A single, deep chord resonated from the orb, and every panel glowed in perfect synchronization. The team froze as a vast projection unfolded before them, a panoramic vision of a distant planet, its surface crisscrossed by deep fissures and erupting geysers of violet steam. Then, in stark contrast, the planet healed itself, tectonic plates realigning, clouds coalescing into gentle rain, life blooming across the barren landscape. And at its heart stood three towering monoliths, each crowned with a shining crystal that pulsed in time with the orb's glow. Dr. Mailing whispered, "The Guardians, more than a memory." The projection felt like an instruction. The monoliths linked to the ship, three constructs, designed to channel its energy, stabilize worlds on the brink, and perhaps ward off the calamities that had befallen their creators. Elena's mind raced. Summon the Guardians, the ship had said. But how, and at what cost? She glanced at Rajiv, whose face reflected equal parts wonder and dread. Before she could speak, the deck beneath them shuddered. Outside, a high-pitched alarm rang through the corridors. Lieutenant Anders barked, "Unauthorized drill detected at the southern perimeter. Weapons teams moving in." Elena's voice steadied. "We have civilian scientists out there, pull them back. We can't risk a firefight that tears the hull." She switched to the camp channel. "Science teams, stand down on perimeter breach. Maintain protocol Bravo, no lethal force. All personnel fall back to safe zones." A chorus of confirmations crackled in response. Still, the vibrations intensified. The ship reacted to the outside disturbance. The core's glow brightened, and an electric hum built to a crescendo. Elena grabbed the probe, still linked to the orb. "Rajiv, adjust the containment field to full resonance mode. Try to stabilize the core's output." He tapped frantically at his console. It's exceeded expected parameters. "The lattice can't contain this level." Suddenly, the orb's surface fractured in iridescent shards, but rather than collapse, the shards peeled back, like petals, revealing an inner chamber. Inside, a crystalline console hovered, its interface patterned with the same glyphs now flickering in recognition. Elena felt the ship's intent as a palpable force. The orb's pulse synchronized with her own heart, and in a voice resonant in her mind, it spoke a single phrase: "Activate." Her breath caught. To activate what? The Guardians? The lifeboat? She closed her eyes and allowed her thoughts to intertwine with the ship's. "We seek understanding. We seek peace. We seek only to learn." The crystalline console responded with a cascade of glyphs, which Rajiv's AI translator began to parse. Words in their rudimentary lexicon appeared. Coordinate, sanctuary, threshold, sacrifice. Elena opened her eyes, feeling the weight of choice. "It wants a sacrifice," she murmured. "Some transfer of energy or life force to awaken its systems fully." Mailing stifled a sob. "The Guardians, those monoliths, they likely draw power from living biomass. If we link to them, we might seed stability on a dying planet." But here, Elena felt tears freeze on her cheeks. "We need answers. We have to know the consequences before we proceed." She tore her gaze from the console to the team. "Get me detailed schematics of the activation sequence. Find an alternative. There has to be a way to leverage the ship's archives without a living sacrifice." Rajiv's console beeped an alarm. "Commander, external forces are breaching the ice walls. This is no simple research mission. Militaries are on site." Elena clenched her jaw. "Order them to hold fire. If they damage this vessel, humanity loses the chance to understand." And if the power spike continues, she cut herself off as the chamber quaked. A ribbon of energy tore through the ceiling, cascading down toward the orb. The crystalline filaments shuddered, and the orb itself glowed white-hot, then pulsed outwards in a wave that washed over them. For an instant, Elena saw possibilities. A healed world bathed in emerald light, oceans teeming with unknown life, civilizations rising on worlds once lost. Then, flashes of ruin, cities collapsing, stars extinguishing, time itself unraveling. And in that doorway between creation and oblivion stood a figure tall, regal, formed of light and glyphs. Its eyes were twin stars, and its voice resonated with the weight of eons. Will you ascend or fall? The wave receded as quickly as it came. The vessel's hum slowed to a gentle throb. Every instrument read normal levels once more, but the team was forever changed. Elena found her legs trembling beneath her. The vessel's projection faded, leaving only the crystalline console awaiting instruction. Elena raised her gloved hand, trembling but resolute. We proceed, she said softly, but on our terms. We seek knowledge-first solutions without sacrifice. In response, the console glowed, acknowledging her choice. The glyphs reassembled into pages of star charts and structural blueprints, guides to the Guardians on that distant planet, but also maps to comprehending the alien archive without endangering human life. Outside the core chamber, the ship's hatch sealed with a whisper of displaced air, as though respecting their decision. Down in the ice fields, the external alarms fell silent. As Elena studied the first page of interstellar schematics, she realized they had crossed a threshold not of distance, but of understanding, a covenant with a race long vanished, and with a power they had barely begun to fathom. Behind her, the orb's gentle pulse echoed like a heartbeat renewed. Humanity stood at the heart of the beast, poised between enlightenment and annihilation, and the next choice would define their destiny. With courage bolstered by hope and tempered by dread, Elena Morozova turned to her team. Let's unlock their archives and pray we're worthy of their trust. And in the silent corridors of the ancient ship, beneath 10,000 years of ice, the pulse of the cosmos awaited their answer. A week had passed since the vessel's core chamber sealed itself at Elena's command, and the Arctic camp had settled into an uneasy equilibrium. The Aurora's mist had become a semi-permanent station, its hull grafted onto the ice by modular lab pods, satellite arrays, and defensive turrets. International teams rotated in and out under strict multinational oversight, a precarious balance of science and security. But beneath the veneer of order, tensions simmered. Dr. Elena Morozova stood at the helm of the Command Tent Central holotable, its surface awash with streams of interlaced data, thermal scans of the vessel's hull, declassified military deployments converging on the ice shelf, encrypted transmissions intercepted from unnamed agencies. To her left, Dr. Rajiv Malhotra tapped through decoded glyph schematics detailing the Guardian's monoliths and emergency failsafes. To her right, Lieutenant Anders marshaled communications with the peacekeeping forces arrayed outside the research perimeter. Elena, Rajiv began, voice low. If we follow the activation schematics exactly, we can send a calibrated burst through the ship's comm relay to a paired station on the monolith world. It would confirm our linkage without requiring sacrifice. He highlighted a nexus point on the star map, but the energy demands are immense beyond anything our generators can supply. We'll need to tap the orb directly as a power conduit. Elena nodded, her breath visible in the cold air. We'll jury-rig a harmonic resonator to draw minimal current, just enough for a handshake, not a full charge. She turned to Anders. Can the perimeter teams hold any hostile incursions while we do this? Anders' gaze was grim. The generals want us to secure the vessel, fully neutralize potential alien threats by force if necessary. They've deployed armored drones to the edge of the no-fire zone. Any misstep, and they'll move in. She clenched her gloved hand. Stand them down. This is a scientific mission, no preemptive strikes. I'll take responsibility. Anders hesitated, then tapped his comm. All units, defensive posture only. No discharge of live rounds without direct order from Dr. Morozova. Outside, boots on the snow crunched to a halt. The icebreaker's turrets retracted, and the drone patrols powered down their targeting systems. A fragile piece, but enough. That night, the northern sky erupted in auroral flames. Green veils and violet ribbons danced overhead, reflecting in the vessel's smooth hull like living paint. Elena and Rajiv worked in the core chamber, assembling the resonator beneath the pulsing orb. Cables snaked across the floor. Devices hissed as coolant circulated, and the orb itself seemed to watch them with an unspoken curiosity. Ready, Rajiv whispered, sweat purling on his forehead despite the cold. Elena took a final look at The interface, a crystalline console awaiting input. She keyed in the sequence 3 pulses of low-frequency hum, then a silent pause, then a single high-pitched tone. The chamber lights dimmed. The orb's glow shifted from cool blues to warm embers. In the distance, through the observation porthole, Elena saw seismic sensors register a faint tremor as the ship transmitted. Then the console flared. A ribbon of light shot along the corridor walls, and for a moment they glimpsed beyond the ice into the void of space, a trio of towering monoliths rising from a violet-hued ocean, their crystals humming in resonance. A bridge of energy arched between them, casting prismatic shards across a moonlit sky. A soft voice echoed in her mind, distant yet intimate. Handshake established. Knowledge feed enabled. Data cascaded through Elena's neural implanta. Provisional link provided by the ship. She saw planetary histories, starbirth records, even the records of extinct species whose genomes were archived within the orb. Her mind reeled with the immensity of it. Every world the explorers had touched, every world lost to cataclysm, preserved here in cosmic limbo. But alongside the wonder came a warning, flashing glyphs of crimson, energy signature unstable, divergent timelines forming. The monolith's rainbow bridge flickered, fracturing the moment the resonance peaked. "Elena," Rajiv shouted. The feedback loop, it's collapsing. She yanked back from the console as a shockwave of energy rippled through the chamber. Cables snapped, panels rattled, and the orb's pulse thundered. They hit the deck as a luminous shockwave slammed into the far wall, cracking the ice that formed its base. Through the fissure, a column of violet-white light shot into the polar night, visible for miles. Alarms blared. Ender's voice came over the comm. "All personnel, immediate evacuation. Ice integrity compromised." Elena scrambled to her feet, grabbing Rajiv's arm. Now down the corridor. They raced back through the antechamber as the vessel shuddered. The hatch sealed behind them with hydraulic finality. Outside, the ice pack groaned and fractured in a spiderweb of new crevices. A drone patrol arrived just in time to guide the retreating scientists to safe ground. The Aurora's mist fired up its engines, melting ice around its hull to dislodge itself before the fissures swallowed it. Elena watched, heart pounding, as the vessel tilted and slid free, then slowly drifted toward open water under escort. The following morning, in a provisional council at Station Polaris, Elena addressed the gathered dignitaries, military commanders in field gray, diplomats in tailored cold weather gear, scientists clutching tablets loaded with preliminary reports. "Yesterday's resonance test exceeded expectations," she began, voice steady despite exhaustion. "We've established a link to the monolith world's network, but also triggered an energy discharge that nearly destroyed the vessel. We've gained access to their archives, but we cannot risk full activation until we understand the safeguards." A general stood. "Dr. Morozova, with all due respect, that vessel is now a strategic asset. We need to quarantine it until we determine its threat level." Elena met his gaze. "And if we let fear dictate policy, we lose the chance to learn from an extinct civilization, maybe even avert the same fate they suffered. Knowledge is not solely a resource to be contained. It's a bridge to our future." A diplomat nodded. "Perhaps a joint oversight council, with equal representation, scientists granted autonomy under provisional security. We proceed, but with stricter protocols." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The general snorted but stepped back. A compromise had been forged, fragile but vital. That evening, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, Elena returned to the vessel's empty hull. The orb's glow shone like a lone star in the gathering dusk. She laid a hand on the metal plating, feeling its faint warmth. Memories of that cosmic handshake pulsed in her mind, the taste of boundless knowledge, and the specter of timelines gone awry. "Rest now," she whispered. "We'll return stronger, wiser." Behind her, the Aurora danced more brilliantly than ever, as if celebrating the first step of an interstellar covenant. The ice beneath her feet sparkled with refracted light, reminding her that beneath the white expanse lay seeds of transformation, not only for the vessel, but for humanity itself. As the wind howled and the polar night deepened, Dr. Elena Morozova tucked her scarf tighter and walked back toward Station Polaris. In her pocket, Her datapad pulsed softly, a reminder that the universe's greatest story was no longer locked in frozen time, but unfolding here, in the fragile balance between discovery and destruction. And high above, the ancient spaceship waited, its heart still beating, ready to guide or to judge the world it had awoken.